Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel BharathEduTech. In previous video, we built this counter app using HTML, CSS and we managed the state of this variable using useState hook. So we had three buttons: increment, decrement and reset. So whenever user clicks on increment, it was increasing by 1, decrement it was decreasing by 1, and when user hits reset, it was reset to 0, right? So now in this video, we are going to continue on practicing useState hook. So here I have added a new feature to this counter app. So I have inserted an input box and an add button. So whatever user enters inside this input box, so suppose I enter 52 and click on add button, so that value should be added to the count value. So whatever we have entered in this input box, it should be clear. Hope you had a proper idea about what we are doing here. So let's do this. So this is what we wrote in our last video. So now after this reset button, we should add a input box and an add button. So let's do this. So I'll have a div and I'll add an input box and a button. So I'll call this button as add. I'll give the class name to this div as add. Okay. So save this and let's go to the browser, and you can see we have an input box and an add button. So let's add some styling to this input box and button. So for that, we'll go to this style.css file and we'll select the class name add and same display to flex, align items to center and justify content to center. And I'm going to give margin top 30 pixel. Okay, so save it and let's go to the browser, and here you can see it's just below these buttons and looking nice. So let's add some padding to this input box and color to this button. So for that, I'll select input box and I'll give margin right 10 pixel, and we are going to select the button inside this class name. So for that, you have to write first the class name and then the button, and I'm going to give color of the text as white and the background color green. So save it and go to the browser, and it's looking nice now. So now let's add functionality to this input box and add button. So now we have to store whatever user enters in this input box. We have to store that. So for that, this input tag will have an attribute called value. So where the initial value is stored. So I'll call this as value to add, and it also has an onChange handler. So whenever user changes something on this input box, so we can use this onChange handler to store the value. So I'll call this as set handler method. Okay. So now on the right hand side, you can see, so there is an error. So it's saying value to add is not defined and set handler is not defined. Okay, so let's define this value to add using useState hook. So const value to add, and we'll have set value to add function and useState hook, and the default value or initial value is 0. Okay, so now we got rid of one error, and there is one more. We have to define set handler. So let's define set handler method. So const set handler is a function. So this set handler will have a parameter called event. So this event object will hold the value whatever we type in this input box. So let's see what this event object is. Console.log event. Okay, let me open the console. So I'll type 10. So you can see I got a big object. So if I open this, you can see there are lots of parameters, but what we have to focus on this is this target parameter. So if I open this target object, you can see there is an attribute called value. This value parameter will hold the value of whatever user types in this input box. So let's get that. To get that, I'll take a variable const num and I'll type event dot target dot value. Okay, so now if I console this num, okay, so if I type, you can see we got 100. So let's go ahead and set this set value to add and pass num variable. So I'll go ahead, set value to add, I'll pass num. Yeah, so now we have stored this whatever user in types in this input box to this value to add variable. Okay, so our next job is to add functionality to this add button. So once after clicking that, whatever the value we have typed inside this input box should be added to this count variable. So let's do that. So to do that, we have to add on click handler to this add button. So on click, I'll call this as add handler. Okay, so let's define this add handler. Const add handler is a function. So what we have to do inside this add handler is we have to set the count. So for that we have to use set count method. So what we have to set? We have to set the present count plus the value stored inside stored by this input box, that is value to add. Okay. So save this. Let's go to the browser and here I'll type 10. Watch watch closely here. 10 plus 10 should be 20. But see what happens. 1010. So what the problem here is, so by default whatever we entered in this text box will be of type string. So to check that, here if I go, let me open the console. For this there is an inbuilt function called type of to check the type of variable. So I'll go ahead and write 100. You can see the type of this num is string. Okay, so how we can tackle this is, so there is an another inbuilt function called numbers. Okay, numbers, so this will convert strings to numbers. So now you can see I'll type 10, so you can see the type of this number is number. Okay, so let's save this and let's test this. Now I'll refresh it and I'll write 10. I'll click on add and you can see 10 plus 10 is 20. Okay, so now our last job is to clear the value inside this input text box. So once after clicking add, the value of this input box should be empty. So to do that, in the add handler, set the value to add value to empty. Okay, so let's test this now. So I click 10, I click on add and you can see 20. And there is also one more last bug we have to clear. You can see I can type, and if I clear this, the 0 will not go off. The 0 will always stay. This is because the default value of this value to add variable is 0. So to get rid of this, what we can do here is, if the user types or if we give values, let it be. If they don't enter anything, we can set the value to an empty string. So now save this. Now you can see I can get rid of this 0 and I can type. Okay, and the remaining functionality will work the same: increment, decrement, and reset. So hope you had a clear idea how useState works, how to add functions or how to add handlers to buttons. So in the next video we are going to have the same functionality, same counter app, but instead of useState hook we'll use useReducer hook to build all the functionality. So thank you guys, thank you for watching this video. For more videos like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel.